Welcome to the No BS Spiritual Book Club's live streaming interview series, where leading new thought teachers, speakers, and authors share the intimate stories behind the 10 best spiritual books that inspired them the most on their spiritual journey. From well-known classics to hidden gems you might never have heard of, the No BS Spiritual Book Club saves you time and money by sharing reliable recommendations from those who've walked the path before you. The No BS Spiritual Book Club, the only no BS guide to the best spiritual books to inspire your own journey of self-discovery. Here's your host, founder of the No BS Spiritual Book Club, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello and welcome. Joining me today to share the stories behind her 10 best spiritual books is prominent emotional wellness expert, motivational speaker, spiritual mentor and author, Sister Dr. Jenna, who's founder of the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Museums in Maryland and Virginia. Sister Dr. Jenna is also a radio and TV personality who serves as one of the evolutionary leaders in service to conscious evolution. She sits on numerous advisory boards, including Conscious Good Media, Global Women's Network, Global Love Button, the Wisdom Council for the Summer of Peace, and Visionary Peace Builder. And she has collaborated with Fortune 500 companies on key issues. Her syndicated radio show, America Meditating, which focuses on wellness, current events, healthy living, self-help, meditation, and empowerment, is a popular global online show. Sister Dr. Jenna, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Very, very warm greeting to you, my dear.
Thank you. Good to see you too. So tell me, what was it like for you to have to pick only 10 books out of probably all the books you've read over many years?
Well, I don't usually kind of skim through a lot of books, but I have a habit, and you might not believe this, but I'm hoping that you will. I have read some of the books that we're going to talk about maybe over 20, 30 times. And I think the reason why I do that is because it means something to me. And there's just something about certain books that I like that I have to go back over and over again with them for it to really sink in. Have you ever had that experience?
I have, and I've also heard of people who read books every year, and each time they find that they get something new out of it.
Yeah, because you're not the same. So the way we interpret it, it's always going to be different.
So it wasn't that difficult for you then to pick 10?
No, it wasn't. It was very easy, actually.
Well, you're the first person who said that. So let's look at your books then, and let's start with the first one, which is New Beginnings, recommended reading for Raja Yoga students. And this was by the Brahma Kumaris. So before we talk about the book itself, just tell us a little bit about Brahma Kumaris.
It's my spiritual community, which I've had the fortune to be connected with since I was about 17. My parents were teachers, and somehow in my 20s, early 20s, I evolved into experiencing its philosophy of focusing on the world behind your eyes, that we're all souls, and we're here playing our parts out. And we've reached a point that we're a little bit attached to our stories, and there's a need to kind of let go of those stories now and to become fully empowered. So it connects you to the source of light, the supreme energy, which is really love. And then it says, just burn all those attachments that aren't serving you anymore and live fully. So the whole philosophy and path has been very beautiful for me. I can't believe we have 9,000 centers in 120 countries, but each time I say that, I'm like, what are we doing? This is too much to handle. So it's been really a lovely community. I know it's well known for its female leadership. And yes, majority of the spiritual leadership are all females, but there are also a lot of males that have taken roles of responsibilities within the organization, which has been very nice.
Is it a frequent publisher? Does it produce many books?
It does have quite a lot of books, especially out of their UK branch. I can't remember all, but we do have a lot out of our UK branch and out of our Australian branch. Most of them are focused on the inner work, the workings of the mind, spirituality, meditation.
So tell me about New Beginnings then. I mean, what was it about this particular book that was a standout for you?
Well, it was when I was getting on the path, really. And my parents had this book around the house. And every so often I would pick it up, just skim through the pages. But I would just start to, as I would evolve, I would start back again at the beginning. And the whole book would go through what we actually teach in our centers called Raj Yoga meditation. But it was this detailed outline of what is the soul, who is the soul, where is the soul, how does the soul function, what are the recordings within you. It just outlined everything for me, and what it did, it gave me clarity as to how to navigate this spiritual journey that I've been called to do. Sandie, I had no plans to do anything spiritual whatsoever. I don't even want to say that I still do, but for whatever reason, this energy comes, and it has me wanting to focus more on our meaning, like, why am I really here? So that book did a lot for me, The New Beginnings. It was my new beginning, because that was really when I entered onto my spiritual path.
That was after you had been in
the nightclubs?
The
Yes.
nightclub industry, yeah, which is quite a difference from what you're doing now. So
Not really. It's just that one is a little bit more louder, and one gives you a lot of different forms of intoxications. But for me on this path now, it's a little bit the same. I'm getting together, I'm having a party with friends. It's a little bit more on the quiet side. I find that we become very intoxicated, but there's no alcohol involved. So then I realized it was just a refinement of energy. But I was still partying, to tell you the truth. Look at my face, can't you see? Party animal. So I'm still in that groove, like I've really began to more deeply accept we're here to really enjoy, Sandie. And in our enjoyment, we shouldn't hurt anyone along the way.
Yeah. So since we're talking about the switch from the club business to this, what was it that made you leave that behind and really dive into this? Destiny,
no plans, destiny. I was happy, I was fine. It was just destined to happen. I was always empathetic and caring about humanity. Despite my Giorgio Armani outfits and $500 pair of shoes and Rolex watches and all of that, I still cared very deeply about people. It's been something with me from a child. And it might be because I've often had to care for my mother, because I don't think she was capable of really taking care of herself. So I think growing up, I was gifted with that sense of compassion for others. So that's really how I got involved. It was just destined to happen.
Tell me a little bit about Raja Yoga meditation. How is that different from other forms of meditation?
Well, each one has to discern for themselves what practice makes them feel like they're spiritually awakening and sustaining their awakening. I've seen a lot of other spiritual traditions, and they're not different in terms of they want you to be a better version. So they're all the same. The style or the way that they go about it with the teachings or the language will resonate with you in whatever way. For me, Raj Yoga resonates a lot because it hands over tools based on spiritual wisdom that's ancient. And it leaves me with the courage to make the change that only I can do. As much as I've been blessed with some of the most powerful women in my life, and as much as they have supported me and blessed me and guided me, I was still left with me to do the real deep internal work. And I think what I've loved about the philosophy or the teachings of Raj Yoga, it cannot deceive you. It leaves you recognizing if you're a soul and you've been through all that you've been through, why is it you're not able to forget the hurts and the pains? Why do you keep holding on to those things? Is it love that you are, in need of? What is it that you seek? Truth, understanding? So when it started to give me the authority to make my connection to God's healing power, and then I started to really realize this is it for me. I don't want to rely on one human being to be my healer. I want to rely on the Supreme One who heals everyone. And there was just something about that. I didn't have to exercise too, by the way. And I loved that. And I loved that it challenged my intellect to become very honest with myself. Not everybody can do Raj Yoga meditation, Sandie. Even though I know everyone can take benefit from it, I've noticed not everyone can sustain it because you have to maintain a sense of courage and sincerity and trust and faith in yourself to keep that light going in you. It's amazing. Yeah.
Book number 2 is also one that's published by Brahma Kumaris. It's God's Healing Power, which you say deepened your connection to Source. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, because one of the main voices in that book was Sister Jayanti, and she's the joint administrational head of the Brahma Kumaris. And I think there was something that I liked where you developed a relationship with God that was ongoing. There's a private, intimate dialogue going on inside of you quite regularly, every day. And not if you're suffering, that you knocked on God's heart and says, I need you. You were traveling with the energy of the divine source in your consciousness as you're going through everything throughout the day. So there was something about that book that made me allow the energy of the divine to just be with me at every step of the way. And it taught me that my healing should not just happen after I've recognized that I've been traumatized, but that my healing is a consistent journey that I have to be on because I've been through a lot as an old soul. It's been a lot going on in the workings of the subconscious. Sandie, we know so much in today's times. I was on the hill with all of these leaders and everyone was talking about all the things of the world. And as I sat there and I looked at everyone's aura and eyes and power that they yielded, and I said, wow, all of these men can change the world, but only if they wanted to. And it's almost as if I felt like they didn't have the awareness inside of them of wanting to, but they had another agenda, and that was fine. And I'm only wishing that one day they'll wake up and feel God's healing power over them, and that they could do the best thing. So I got really close to God in that book.
Well, the next book is one that strips away the illusions that surround the modern malaise we call stress. It's 7 Ahas of Highly Enlightened Souls, How to Free Yourself from All Forms of Stress by Mike George.
Yes, Mike George is such an eloquent author and has authored so many books. And this one was at a time when I found myself extremely engaged. And I actually don't remember when I've not been. But there are times when I just felt that the way that I was moving wasn't me. And I felt like I had changed the interpretation of what my spiritual path meant. And it wasn't just about the events and the people and how much we were doing, but it was about how much at peace was I in the midst of doing it all. And for one to become really enlightened, there can't be this companion that you walk with all the time, which is the almighty ego. And there was one thing that he mentioned in there that stuck in very strongly. And he defined ego as an attachment to a false identity that I carry for myself. And he says, if you think you're a man, a woman, or even if you are attached to your religion or your position in your job, you're not going to be effective. It's going to actually hold back the potential of what you actually could do. And so I loved when he reminded me that ego was connected to any attachment that was limited. It still had the making of elements, and that if I kept believing in the 5 elements, it was taking away my light. So I needed to tap into what the virtues of the soul actually is, and that moved me to another level of belief.
Yeah, well, it's very true. The minute that we, attached to a belief about anything, we limit everything else. We close down to all the other possibilities.
Yeah. And actually we get addicted to being limited, and it's only when we look on the screen or we hear someone's life seeming larger than life, we sometimes start to feel, oh, but I could do this, I should do this, but we're not preparing the soul to move into that space because we're still carrying the things of all those illusions. So in his book, he really outlined all the things that were holding us back, but also those moments of realization that click in when you're like, I'm not the body, I am spirit, I'm energy. And the original nature of the soul is definitely not an arrogant one. And so he kind of redefined that, yeah.
So the 7 ahas, the eureka moments, these are the understanding of things exactly like that we are not the identity, we're not the personality.
Yeah,
7
it's like
moments like that.
Yeah, and it connected to his next book, which I know we might talk about. But there was another book, like the immunity of the soul or the immune system of the soul, right?
Immune system of the soul, yes.
Because he connected his continuation of his exploration in his next book, which took us into a deeper awareness of the soul, where the soul has all of these various levels or layers of consciousness, right? So in that book, he said, until you can get into the awareness of the purity and the peace that the soul originally is, then there is an illness. You're going to pick up some sort of a disease because your immunity is low when it comes to understanding your original identity. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Wasn't that a nice one?
It is a nice one, and I remember looking at it earlier and I made some notes. I mean, one of the things he says is the health of your body and the wellness of your being are different. Each has their own immune system. And really, he identifies the 12 diseases of the soul that we all suffer from, and shows us how to activate our other immune system and heal ourselves. Do you remember what any of those 12 diseases are?
I sure don't, but knowing Mike and his books, from what I can recall now, because that was a few years ago, there was one in which I think he had expectations in it. That if you live your life like expecting from other people, was that in there? If I can recall.
I don't know, but I'm not surprised that you're saying that.
Yeah, that he had expectations in there not to expect, that it was one of the diseases, having the sense of guilt or inability to let go and to forgive. He definitely had attachment in it, because that's always been a very big part of Mike's writing, is that he sums it up to most of our issues and problems are rooted in our attachment to some thought process or belief system. There was one part in the book that he talked about how much we're investing so much in believing we're the body, but we're actually the soul. So those are some of the diseases of consciousness that he pointed out in the immunity of the soul.
Yeah, and of course, if you have attachments, you're going to have expectations.
Right.
And, you know, when they're not fulfilled, we end up very, very miserable.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. Book number 5, Intimate Conversations with the Design, Prayer, Guidance and Grace by Caroline Myss. And you said that this came at a time when you were having a health opportunity. I love the way you phrase that. It's not a health issue, it's an opportunity. And each page took you to a space of healing.
Yeah. So I had a health opportunity, and you know, Caroline Myss is also an intuitive healer and an intuitive medical practitioner, and I had called Caroline to say, tell me, do you think I have this thing? And she's like, yep, you sure do. And I was like, oh God, don't tell me that. And long story short, she says, I'm going to send you my manuscript. My book is about to get released in another 2 or 3 months. And I'd like you to do an endorsement of the book. I'm also in the book as an endorser of what the... And Sandie, I would lay in bed and I would just slowly breeze through each of the pages. And each of the pages felt like God was talking to me. Like he was just showing me the way. And each prayer in that book were real prayers of a soul, a relationship with God. And it wasn't just a connection or a contact with God, but in that book you embarked upon deepening a very intimate relationship with Source. And as you kept deepening this intimate relationship with Source, I just felt like I was healing no matter what I was going through, that I heal. So I remember once calling her and telling her that your book should become like a Gita, that we should put it down because it touches you in an intimate, deep way, where your relationship with God is private, but you were invited in the privacy of that space that became your own.
The book offers 100 of Caroline's personal prayers, each of which illustrate a different type of grace that feeds the human soul. That's a really interesting. I mean, you think about a book of prayers, it's a book of prayers, but what you're explaining is that this is way beyond that.
Yeah, it was. It was. She would talk about things that she must have gone through, and then she would share a prayer. And these were her private prayers that she would just have because of whatever she was going through and witnessing in her own journey. But they were also mine. And maybe there were times that I wasn't able to articulate the words as eloquently as she would in her prayer towards God. I call God Baba. And maybe my communications with Baba are very simple. Many times when you see me in meditation with the divine, I sit and I know the divine's energy only connects to mine if I've stripped away the attachment to name, gender, role, and I'm just a soul. So when I was in my health opportunity, and I would just sit and I would be with Baba, then I would remember some of the prayers that Caroline had, and they had become my own. And then I would add on to what I was experiencing when most of it was just simple between me and Baba. It was like, I just want to be in your company. I don't want anything from you. I don't have anything to give you. I just want to be with you. And then I would just sit and be with the divine, be with God, Allah, Jehovah, Shiva, whatever's the language, but just sit with Baba. And it always amazed me how Caroline always could have this autobiography, when it comes on to her prayers to God. And mine are like, I don't have anything to say, I'm just going to be with you and I'm good.
A prayer of presence.
Yeah.
So book number 6 is Caroline's most famous, Anatomy of the Spirit, the 7 Stages of Power and Healing.
This, I had not heard about the book until actually maybe 3 years ago. And it's an old book for Caroline. I think it might have been one of her staple books, right? One of her beginning books?
1996, yeah.
I just heard of that book like 3 years ago. And as I kept reading through it, I was realizing, wow, this is reminding me of everything that I know, that I'm not the only one having these thoughts or these beliefs. And so Anatomy of the Spirit became like a confirmation book that I just enjoyed, again, the way she languaged things and broke things down for you to understand how the soul is on a journey and how the soul goes through various emotional states and how important it is for us to get over ourselves and stop being stuck in drama and issues that are occurring, but that they have to occur, and the soul has been through this. There was a part, I don't know if you remember, and Caroline was mentioning how you go through stages, there's going to be a stage that the soul goes through, from feeling that you're all together to being like just a mess. And that's a part of the journey. But then you will come back again to feeling that you're all together. But it's important that you recognize the spirit can never be killed. It can never be destroyed. You can just go through changes, but you never die. So it was important to understand the soul that you are and to not allow certain emotions and things that are going on in your life to pull you away from that, And I just loved that book so much. It really helped me to deepen my personal spiritual practice. That book I used to listen to an Audible at night. I don't know, maybe 2 months, 3 months straight. I would just listen to it because everything she would say was so crystal clear to me, because it was my story. Like I could relate to every bit of whatever she was saying in that book.
Yeah, I find that when I listen to Audible, I retain a lot more of the information.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So book number 7, Out of Your Mind by Alan Watts, legendary thinker, 1998. And this is based on 6 of his most engaging teachings on how to break through the limits of the rational mind.
Yep, that's it. How to break through the limitations of your mind. He hits every main limitation that human beings have and basically give us an invitation to get over ourselves again. The whole thing, if you notice, all of my books are about this inner work, right? This inner being, because I'm just so curious about the way we view things. I love his philosophical way of really reaching into the soul and into the mind and to work it through, and the way he dissects interpretation of things. In that particular book, you remember, he has a way of giving you a mirror to interpret the way you're actually seeing what you're going through. And there were so many powerful points in his sharings. I wish I could have just, listened over to that particular book before we came on today, because there were so many things that used to trigger me And it just inspired me so much to release a lot of my limits. Even in my spiritual path, I could watch myself getting caught up with these invisible fences. That because you are in a spiritual journey, you think that that's all, and it's not just a title. It's not just your religiosity that defines who you are. It has to do with the freedom of your mind that really brings you to a place of understanding yourself and getting you out of boxes, even if you think the box is a spiritual one. That cannot be enough for you. So with Alan's book on that, it helped me to remember I do not want to be in a box that says because I'm a Brahma Kumaris or a yogi or a radio host or a woman or this. Get me out of that, please. There's no way the soul should be squeezed into a label. You know?
Yeah. I mean, he always said that in order to come to your senses, you sometimes need to go out of your mind, which he's absolutely right.
He was right.
Yeah. He also said,
fantastic.
yeah, what an icon. He also said that to find our deepest purpose, we must fully embrace chaos and the void. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, because it's in the chaos that you actually will see the things that you've been missing. And it's in the chaos that it actually shows you where your greatest strengths are. And it's in the chaos that you realize how long of a fool you've been making yourself to be. And it's in the chaos that maybe, just somehow, some way, you come back home to yourself. Because the chaos is a release, you know. It's actually a release to show you something that there's no way you can live in that chaos for so long, you know. You want to be in order. You want to be free. Chaos definitely would not let me get there. I mean, it wouldn't let me live in there, but it was the tool to get me out, to get into the space I needed to be in.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the breaking down of everything, isn't it? And it's exactly what's going on now in society. So we have a great opportunity here.
Now we'll look at what's going on in all the countries, so many of the countries around the world. It fascinates me that the leaderships that are being attracted to positions of prime minister or president of countries are very jarring personalities, and they are very chaotic in their leadership. And it's almost as if within that chaos that they bring, they're waking up their citizens. Now make a decision. What do you want to feed?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Very interesting point. Number 8, Bhagavad Gita, interpreted by Eknatheswaran. So that was published in 2007, and I cannot tell you how many times the Gita turns up on people's lists, and I'm always surprised by the interpretation that they choose, that they relate to, and I've never come across this particular one before.
Oh, he's the best.
He's the best, is he?
He's the best.
What makes him the best?
The clarity, the way he extracts the spiritual principles that you could apply in your day-to-day life, rather than making it so out there that you don't ground yourself in the power that the Gita offers. I've listened to that one. You're going to think I'm unusual over 80 times.
No,
over 80 times. And I go to bed listening to them, so I want you all to know it's not that I don't have anything to do with my life. So usually when I'm turning in after a long day, I usually have a cup of hot water or tea, and I'll lay in my bed. This is my routine. I go to Audible. I go, which one do I want to listen to? Anatomy of the Spirit, Alan Watts. No, let me go Gita. And then I'll play it for maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes. And I'll always go to bed with one of those thoughts in my head. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. And then and sometimes, because it's also so long, they're like 8-9 hours, I'll actually wake up everyone and I'll hear a point, I go, oh my God, yes, that's true. So the first thought in my consciousness when I wake up is one of those points. And the Gita was one that I just loved so much. But it took me to certain spiritual principles that I've been studying with the Brahma Kumaris, which I didn't really have maybe that deep understanding because I wasn't raised a Hindu. My father was a Hindu and my mother was Roman Catholic, but they never imposed any of their spiritual or religious beliefs on me. So when I ended up in the Brahma Kumaris, and majority of the students that came to me were of the Hindu background, I was like, I don't know anything that they're saying, so I have to study this. So it was interesting that when I started to study the Gita and other scriptures from Hinduism, the Upanishads, the Vedas, and all of these things of the deities, I loved the point of view that I took versus someone who was entrenched in its teachings. I realized that a lot of those that were entrenched in the teachings didn't have as much clarity about what those words or what those chapters actually meant in the Gita. And each time I would listen to it, I went, oh yeah, that makes sense. God will come. There's a part in the Gita. God will come quietly in your consciousness when you've reached a state of irreligiousness and despair and sort of chaos. And I said, yes, he's here. He's here now. And then there'd be like, when the urn of all of your karmas, of choices made without divinity, is filled in the soul, then you will also see me. When the urn of sin is full, then you'll come to me. Because the only way to empty that urn would be through yoga, through meditation. And I speak a lot in that Gita about Raj Yoga. And one beautiful word that you won't hear it much in the Bhagavad, but it was entitled Mana Bhav. And in English it was saying, let your mind now be with me, and I will remove your attachments to your illusions. Just a fantastic, guys, get that Gita from Eknath, not from anyone else. From everyone else, it just confused me. But with Eknath, I was like, Eknath, that is so clear. It was just so clear, yeah.
Good. So
you could say I love that book, right? You could say
yeah,
I love that one.
tell. I can tell. Number 9, daily readings, Destiny daily readings, inspirations for your life's journey, by Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Yeah. Gosh, I love how T.D. just yells. Have you ever? I mean, when he does a performance or a sermon, it's like the whole of Texas and the world can hear him because he's really yelling. So I've often thought that I'm going to bypass hearing how high his volume is in his searching or his sharing of God, but I want to listen to his content. And when I used to listen to his content, it was always so rich. So one day I ended up getting his book, Destiny by Bishop Jakes, and it was all about your part and your destiny is fixed for you. But also, do not give up on your destiny because somebody has told you something else. Your destiny is yours. And despite the naysayers, the people who try to hold you back, those who are trying to extinguish your light, your destiny is fixed for you. And you must follow it because it's the inevitable. It'll take you either longer if you listen to people, or you can move according to the natural sound of it. So I loved that one, and he didn't scream in that audible or in that book, but he really helps you to get over your limits in that book, to stop listening to people who just don't have your back. Like, you can't be friends with people who want what you have. And another thing that he was outlining, which I really loved, he says, there are different ways that you bump into people, because people help you to move towards your destiny. There are like your it was like he was, it's not contact, like associates, confidant, and those who really are with you. He says you who are really with you, and if they're your associate, you can't tell them things that you would tell your confidant. You know, so he was outlining that be very discerning who is who in your life.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. The book, it says, breaks distracting habits and helps you realize your destiny through uplifting daily affirmations and devotionals.
Yeah, it was very nice, very nice.
I'm not familiar with his work. This is the first time I've come across it, so I'll have to check it out.
You'll love it.
So number 10, a book that often comes up on people's lists as well, not as often as the first book by this author, but it is A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. Eckhart's philosophy and way of teaching is very similar to what I've learned on my journey with the Brahma Kumaris. And again, I'm often attracted to teachers who are able to articulate it in a way that I can't. And then it just offers to me a confirmation. And so he basically talks about the philosophy of Raj Yoga. There is a golden age that's coming, no matter what you do. You have to first become like a deity or an angel pure before you get there. You're going to go through changes, duality, religions, all of that are going to turn you around, but at some point in time, you're going to become the new version of yourself, which is the new earth, the golden age. And that's the essence of his book. I mean, I've read it a lot. And I agree. I agree with everything Eckhart says in that book, because he's right.
Yeah. And I think what's happening in the world today is evidence that we are, you know, leaving one era and entering a new age, for certain.
Yeah.
So there's another book. That's your 10 best books, but there's another book we need to discuss, and that's the book that you've just released, Meditation, Intimate Experiences with the Divine through Contemplative Practices. Tell us about the inspiration for this book.
Well, you know, Sacred Stories approached me a while back about doing a book on meditation, and I have a copy of it right here. And you know what was funny, Sandie? I told them what the world doesn't want right now is a book on meditation. And so I just told her, no, I'm not going to do that. And what was really good about her and what she did, she had the courage to come back to me and say, please, Sister Jenna, this is a book that I'd like if you could share your mystical experiences with God, and you could invite friends to be a part of this journey with you. And I thought about it, and Antonia, who's my right arm, says, I think you should do this. This might be a good thing. And then I ended up saying yes. And so within a year, we put together this book, and there are 37 authors, co-authors with me that shared their experiences of God. And what was fascinating, because some of us didn't even talk about our mystical experience, 9 out of 10 stories in the book, everything connected us to light. Everyone had an experience of light, and the light is a conscious vibrational energy that touches something in the soul and shakes it up in such a way that it changes. And once awareness is transformed, you can't take it back. You can't go back to old.
Yeah.
And so in every one of the stories from each co-author along with myself, the reader goes on this journey of realizing this energy of light is for everyone. And so, yeah, it was just a wonderful, actually, I was very surprised that I actually enjoyed it. I wasn't planning on enjoying it.
You've got Jean Houston as one of your contributors in the book.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She
I was going to
is.
get Caroline to help out too, but it was just a matter of time. But yeah, Jean told a little story about her little pug, her little puppy, and what it actually meant to her and how it awakened her to learn more about who she was. It's amazing how things, I think if we're aware and if it's the right time, there's something or someone that has to wake you up from this kind of a slumber. I've been really feeling for myself lately that I just don't want to feel like I'm losing time. Like I want to be able to keep my inner world linked to not just truth, but a living truth. I want to value a leaf on a tree, a raindrop on the ground, a fish in a pond, a smile on someone's face, and not feeling that when I'm speaking to 50 million people that that's any less than that little leaf on the tree, you know? So that means there's something inside of me at a deeper level that is now being called.
One of the things I've noticed is babies and very small children, how if you just observe them, you know, their absolute joy with the world and the curiosity and the wonder and the awe. You know, I first noticed this when I was holding my 6-month-old grandson, and I'd take him to the window and he'd look at the trees as if he'd never ever seen a tree before. And I'd take him back there the next day and he would look at the tree with exactly the same wonder and awe.
Yeah.
And I thought, at what point do we stop seeing and appreciating, you know? And we have to be reminded of these things.
Yeah. I was talking to Jean this morning, and she was reading my future. And you know how much of a futurist she is. And I said, Jean, honestly, I think that if I become very truthful and real, that will be my service. And that's what I'm really, really wanting to work towards. That means everything I do. And so how I spend my time on my phone, how I respond to messages, the state of consciousness I'm in when I'm having a conversation with you, with others, that it's genuine. So it's been a very unique period for me to recalibrate my journey. Yeah.
What sort of response are you getting to the book?
Great. It's become #1 3 times already on Amazon, that is, of course, an Amazon bestseller. So response, the conversations, what I've been hearing consistently is it surprised me, one. Secondly, in many of the stories on each page, something comes to life when you read it. And I went, that's good. That's good.
So no regrets?
No, not at all. Not at all.
What about a second one?
Not at this time. I don't know. We'll see. I'm open. I've been thinking about a book, but the book that I've been thinking about is more about the journey of spirituality and dismantling some of the myths that people have been, I think, holding on to, defining it as spiritual, whether it's the way you dress or your discipline or the way you eat or your food. But that spirituality was so much more different than what I'm seeing it to be now.
How do you define it?
I think it's an authenticity in the way you show up in your every moment, even if you're not perfect and even if you're disheveled. And I keep turning to my mother as an example. It doesn't matter how she looks or whatever she's doing. She's being truthful to herself. And there's something spiritual about that. And then I've seen and known certain people who just seem so perfect. And I feel like energetically, I don't feel that it's what I need. Like I feel there's something not there. And so for me, spirituality is a person who recognizes they're not fully themselves. 2, they become aware that now I've got to generate the energy to get back to me. And 3, they're very patient with the process. And 4, they'll never know if they changed or not. I mean, that's deep spirituality, that you don't even know, but it's just happening. You know, Jesus never knew 2,000 years later that there'll be over 1 billion people turning to his message for truth and for conviction. And he didn't have Instagram or Facebook. And yet there was a purity in whatever he did that has sustained his tribe and the world for so long. I want that. That is spiritual. The Buddha. Yeah, the way they were very pure inside, that's the spiritual.
The ultimate influencers.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about your radio show, America Meditating.
It's
I know
doing
that
well.
you focus on wellness and current events and healthy living. And what do you most like to talk about?
Life. I like to hear how people are overcoming their challenges and some of the good things that are going on for them in life. And to be very honest, I just love having that one-on-one connection with somebody. And generally, a lot of my guests from the radio show, we take each other on a retreat. So a lot of my guests on the America Meditating Radio end up in a retreat with me and friends from around the world. And we become like a family. A lot of the guests on the show, I don't care how many listeners we've had, and I know we have a lot. And thank you for tuning in. But it's always been about the relationship I'm forging with my guest on the radio. And they're also profound. They're not ordinary people. None of the guests, maybe 1%, but everyone that comes on AM has something very, very unique, uniquely precious and special about who they are on this planet.
How do you find them? I mean, I know you've had some well-known people like Alanis Morissette and Whoopi Goldberg.
It's in the eyes. It's in the eyes. Honestly, we look in the eyes, and then we look at the work that they've done, and then we determine if it's connected to what we have been doing. That's it. It doesn't matter if they have 5 followers or 5 million. If there's that special innocence, there's a special goodness in their eyes. Like I can tune into that. It says, yes, I definitely want this one for our radio show. It'd be great. And hopefully they say yes, and I get a good yes. Sometimes I don't get a yes. It's very rare, but most of the times we get a yes.
So tell me, what gets you out of bed each day? I mean, what excites you? What keeps you going?
I will say of recent, not much. I'll be honest with you. I won't say that I get up every morning with excitement like I used to. Why? I think I'm defragmenting my karmas and my stories on my interior world. So I'm not getting out of my bed with the enthusiasm and the excitement that I'm accustomed to. But I'm getting out of my bed because I have responsibilities and lives that I have to take care of. And I am glad that I have that. And because of that, it keeps me going for now. And I'm sure that I can feel that I'm moving into another stage of becoming extremely aligned with where my energy is as a soul, what is really the call for me to do right now, and how God's energy is going to thrust me into that particular place of existence. And I'm not rushing it, but I have to admit, I'm ready to do something different. And that's my honest feelings.
You said in the book that we find ourselves right now in the age of great transformation, one of the most consequential moments in human history. And I think everybody is feeling this on some level, even if they can't articulate it or pinpoint exactly, something like this and say that it is a consequential moment. They don't know why it might be, but they're feeling that great change is afoot. Do you see this change as
very much
something really positive that's going to happen?
Oh, it has to be. It's just, you see, we're all souls, and inside of the soul there's a preordained script already written, whether we wish to accept it or not. It's just that we're not clear in what it is. And I think when we feel the energy of the world feeding anger, ego, lust, and greed, that fear within ourselves realizes this cannot continue for too long. So I think we're seeing the inevitable, which is, since we're not changing on our own with love, something tragic has to happen to make us change. It's like an addict. You need an intervention to get you off of the drugs. And I think that's what's happening in the world right now. I think people can sense something's about to give, and they're concerned, do I have enough power to survive it? And I would say if everyone meditates, you will have enough power to survive what's going to happen in the world.
Yeah, well, I think that's the only way people are going to survive, is that they've got to find that center that allows them to just, be aligned with what's most important.
Yeah, I agree.
Sister Jenna, thank you so much for adding your 10 best books to the No BS Spiritual Book Club's library of recommendations. It's a treat to have you on the show, and I'm really glad to be publishing your list. I think it's a very inspiring list, and I'm certainly going to check out some of the titles. So thank you. Thank you for being with us.
I've been honored. My fortune. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Sister Jenna's book, Meditation, Intimate Experiences with the Divine Through Contemplative Practices, is published by Sacred Stories Publishing. To learn more about her work, visit americameditating.org. Now, before we close, as the spiritual book market becomes increasingly crowded, it is becoming ever more challenging to sort the wheat from the chaff, which is why we launched the No BS Spiritual Book Club, so we could provide you with trusted recommendations from authors, teachers, speakers, and others who've walked this path before you, like Sister Jenna and many of our other guests. If you're looking for inspiration on books that are going to help you move forward, check out our free 10 Best Spiritual Books archive at the nobsspiritualbookclub.com, where you can also view previous episodes of this interview series and add your name to our Save My Space list to get last-minute reminders of upcoming episodes. That brings us to the end of this week's show. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and I'll be back at the same time next week with another 10 Best Spiritual Books interview. Till then, it's goodbye from me.
If today's conversation sparked your curiosity, you'll love our other shows. The Synergy Sessions, where leading-edge thinkers collide in bold, unscripted dialogues that ignite new possibilities. Between Realms and Reason, where we journey into the mysterious consciousness, energy, and the hidden layers of reality, where science converges with spirit in ways you've never imagined. And the No BS Spiritual Book Club, where leading-edge new thought speakers, teachers, authors, and luminaries who've walked this path before you share the 10 books that had the biggest impact on their life journey. All 3 shows are available on YouTube, Spotify, Substack, and all major podcast platforms. For more information, visit sedgbeer.com. That's SEDGBEER.com.